Hello, I'm Mitch Fox, President of the Nevada Broadcasters Association, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Nevada on the Air, a program that highlights the leaders and innovators and out-of-the-box thinkers who are shaking things up and making a big difference in communities throughout the state of Nevada. I'm extremely pleased today to have State Senator Joe Hardy on the program. Senator Hardy has been a member of the Nevada State Legislature since 2002, first as a state assemblyman, and then later he became a state senator in 2010. So I'd like to say welcome to Senator Hardy.
Mitch, good to see you again.
How are you?
I am doing well. Appreciate you having me on your show.
Absolutely. It's been a while, actually,
Yeah.
but it's good to have you back. And I'd like to talk to you about some of the issues that you folks are going to be facing when you head back up to Carson City next year. People are tracking education, they're looking at marijuana, they're looking at a lot of issues that are very important to them. But I thought we'd talk about something that we haven't talked much about on this show, and that's the opioid crisis. It seems like this tragedy, and certainly Governor Brian Sandoval is attacking this problem head on, as many people in our state government are, and also nonprofit agencies as well. But it seems like it affects everybody, perhaps tangentially, but everybody knows a friend or even a friend of a friend or a family member. As a physician, how bad is the crisis right now, particularly in our state?
It's real. It's very real, Mitch, and it's very personal, and it affects everybody. Just yesterday, I talked with a good friend on texting who just found out his son had died.
Tragic.
I mean, it is real. It affects everybody on every different level. And the governor sponsored the bill, AB 474, that basically allowed us as providers, as prescribers, to be very serious about this very issue. It allowed us to say this is what we do and this is how we do it, and we're accountable for it. We check the prescription monitoring program every time we do it. We fill out a form. We get the person to initial each and everything that we agree on. And one of the things that's come out of this opioid crisis is the understanding that not only is it real, but we can do something about it. There's hope. There's help. There's hope for the help. And there's things that we can do. You know, and I literally have talked with 2,100 prescribers
Wow.
in the last 6 months about this very issue. And one of the things I do, Mitch, is I use the example of my Narcan, and the brand name being Narcan, is I hold this up and I say, so have you ever seen this before? And many of them haven't. So I put it behind my back and then I say, have you ever seen this before? And they say, yes, I have. But this is how you do it. When somebody's overdosed, you put this up their nose, you put the plunger in and you push it, and you wake them up.
Wow.
Saves their life, literally.
Well, the Nevada Broadcasters Association was proud to go ahead and produce a documentary on the opioid crisis. It was aired statewide throughout the entire state. We had a huge response over it. People are looking for information. They're
Right.
looking for answers. And it's a tragic situation, but as you said, if you get that information, if you get access to those providers, there could be a way out for folks.
Yeah. And we don't charge them with a crime if they're the other person that's using that takes them to the emergency room or calls the paramedics. We are a good Samaritan state. And did I say that you can get this without a prescription?
Wow.
You can walk into the pharmacy and you can say, I would like this, and they will give it to you for a cost. And you can get it either up the nose or as a shot, but you can get it without a prescription. You don't have to have a license to do it. You don't have to have a name. You just say, I want to buy it. So every time we give a prescription for a narcotic, we can warn them that this is potentially habit forming and you can overdose on it. And then we can say, by the way, you can have this and you can get this and have it available.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Let's move on to a few other subjects. We did talk about education at the beginning of the show. There's the whole ESA funding portion of it. Marijuana, of course, a portion of that to go to education, K-12 education. So what do you think are the specific issues that you and your colleagues are going to address with respect to K-12 education in the next session?
Realistically, if we look at the graduation rate and we consider how to graduate students, because that's their entry level into jobs. We know that graduation rate is increased with career technical education. We know that. And then we know that if people have an opportunity to have their student go to a school that they like, that they have trust in, that has input into that process, they like that. So we see the community involvement, we see the teachers, we see the students, if they have buy-in, if they have an opportunity to invest in education, they like that, and they perform better. When parents are involved, they perform better. When the students are involved and they have skin in the game, they perform better. So the education savings account looks at that kind of thing. And you talked about marijuana. The marijuana money is problematic because of that concept of no banking. You can't take a bundle of cash to the school and say, here's your money. And that's something that probably on a federal level is going to be looked at eventually. Right now it's a conundrum. What do we do with the cash?
Right.
Where do we put it, and how do we handle it? And that's a problem for us. So I suspect we'll be talking a lot about that.
Let's talk about something. It really became a focal point after the 1-year anniversary of 1 October.
Yeah.
People are still wondering where we are with the background check, something that the voters approved. What can the legislature do on that particular issue, on the whole issue of gun safety? What do you anticipate you and your colleagues doing?
Well, it's going to be a vigorous debate. There will be people who say we need to do something and people say we don't need to do anything. And the reality is, in the political world, you try to do something that works. So what is it that caused the shootings in various places, and particularly in Las Vegas? And it probably wasn't the 14-year-old. It wasn't the 16-year-old. It wasn't the 18-year-old. It was a fellow who had I'll call it an evil propensity to do something that was horrible. It was horrific. So what is it that's going to prevent that kind of thing is different than all of the things that we hear. We're just not going to sell any guns. We're not going to buy any guns. And I think that's the discussion that we're going to have. What is it that's going to prevent something horrible? I just got out, literally 2 hours ago, I was in a meeting where we had one of the doctors from UMC come and report on what his role was during that shooting. And it brought tears to his eyes as he realized and talked with us and shared with us the people who were injured, but the survivors.
Yeah.
The survivors. I mean, you talk about a very tender thing when you talk to the survivors. And I've been able to talk to some survivors, and I mean, it tugs at the cockles.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's finish off by talking about something that's on the ballot, and it's got a lot of attention in the media, and that's question 3, the Energy Choice Initiative. This would, if approved, it would end up in the state constitution. It just wouldn't become part of NRS, Nevada Revised Statute. So this is a big deal, and we hear all of these voices on both sides. Both sides seems to be heavily funded. What's your view?
Did I tell you I was from Boulder City?
You're just told our viewers you
Okay,
were.
so I'm from Boulder City, and I say, well, how's this going to affect a town or a city's utility? It's going to be a major problem. I was asked by the Rural Electric Association to come and tell them the answers. So I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I made a list of questions, 1.5 pages of questions. So when I went to them, I said, well, these are my questions about it. And the more questions I said, the bigger their eyes got. And they realized that they are kind of out there in the rurals, dependent on a steady stream of electricity. And so my question is, who's going to be the provider of last result? Who's going to keep the electrons flowing? How can I predict what's going to go on? And so, yeah, it was pretty interesting how they realized that they are vulnerable. In fact, I had when California did their restructuring, or we call it different names depending on where you're at, I talked with a lady who's from California and said, well, you had blackouts. She said, no, we didn't. I said, well, yeah, you did. And she said, no, we didn't. I said, well, you did. And she said, no, we didn't. And I said, well, where do you live? And she told me, and she said, well, I said, well, maybe you didn't. She said, well, just a few.
Oh, she acknowledged
Yes.
it then.
So
But it didn't matter, I
right.
guess.
So, the longer it is away from them, the more they forget what it is. But compare the rates in California and compare the rates here, and now you know why some companies are moving to Nevada, if not for no other reason than to save on utility bills. It's real. So, and I've in full disclosure, I talked with the person from Texas who came to talk to us and say what a good thing this was. And choice is always good. So choice, everybody
You
votes
hear
for
that, you
choice.
automatically.
We love choice.
Right.
And so, he said, it's not going to increase your costs and da-da-da-da-da. Well, in the end, he said, well, your bill is going to go up. And I thought, well, that's what I've been saying. And so Texas didn't do it by a constitutional amendment. And they were there to say we should do it by a constitutional amendment. Well, I have a problem with that because you can't change a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
Once it's done, you're living with it for a long time. I agree that the big companies who have gone out have paid their dues to the company for the exit fee, and I think it makes a good sense for them to do what they did. But they did that without a constitutional amendment.
Right. It's a free market then.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, so if you want to leave and pay the fine, great. I mean, what's to prevent that from happening? So I think we already have some choice that is there already. So I'm not in favor of it, to answer your question directly.
All right. Senator, we out of town. It's been great having you on the program today, and I look forward to seeing you at the next session of the Nevada State Legislature.
Thank you, Mitch. Good to be here, and good to have you there.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.